All right, peace, family. Cause see, the reason I want to, and it's going to be a series of videos I'm about to do, but what I want to establish is what we have European colonists doing in America, the North America for sure, is that they're trying to separate themselves from what they deem as blatant racism, but they don't talk about the racism that exists in the core values of the United States. And no matter who you vote for or who you put in, will always follow by these guidelines and rules. It is to keep one, the United States white. All of them white people who get up there and pander to black people for their vote, trust me, they want their kids to look just like them, and they want the United States to continue to be white. They want global supremacy, whether it's their language, their money, their customs. They're pushing that on everybody. This is what this country is about. They're not going out fighting for no African nations, and if they do, it's for colonialism. They're only going out to protect the interests of European nations and Israel. That's their allies, white countries. But we're going to show that white supremacy runs deep within the U.S. and its guidelines and its structures. But this is from our website, Free Black Society. It's just a compilation of different statements by Lincoln. But it's white savior. The Emancipation Proclamation only freed the slaves located in the states actively in rebellion against the United States. So that's something that is very important. The president of the United States of America, the Union leader at the time, freed slaves only located in the states rebelling. So if you're the Union president, you're freeing slaves in the Confederate States. How does that sound? He didn't even have the authority to do it. The order was only to allow those slaves to help fight for the Union Army. His executive order did fulfill his words that he would attempt to save the Union by freeing some slaves and leaving others alone. According to researchers Philip Magnus and Sebastian Page, Lincoln was speaking to an audience of freed slaves at the White House in 1862, and he encouraged them to leave the U.S. and resettle abroad. So this telling you that when Lincoln was talking to an audience of people who was already freed, he was focusing on resettling these people, telling these people to basically kick rocks. He stressed to them that he considered free blacks who sought a permanent existence in the United States to be selfish, and he encouraged them to relocate to Central America, especially because of the similarities of the climate with your homeland. So if you're looking at the fact that he called them selfish for wanting to stay inside the United States, do you ever hear Lincoln? Do you ever hear the thought that Lincoln didn't really free the slaves because he just basically wanted to free the slaves? This man called them selfish for wanting to stay in the U.S. So Lincoln wasn't for integration. So that's a fact. This is Lincoln words. Lincoln wasn't for integration, but we're going to get into it some more. But and this is the thing though, he encouraged them to relocate to Central America. The thing about blacks, if you want to look into it all the way, you got your Olmec bloodlines, and that's just the mother civilization, but this civilization is older than the mother civilization. They got like the grandmother civilization. But the Olmec civilization, for a fact, we can look into their descendants and tell through different migrational patterns that these people came to the southeastern United States, up to Ohio, in different areas, and settled and built monuments and structures. These people was here. But he said that he wanted them to relocate to Central America. We could prove that we was in Central America. He didn't know at the time, but they ended up finding the Olmec kids in Central America. He said that this was being suited for their physical condition. He further engaged the British in secret diplomacy to get permission to set up a colony for free blacks in Belize, leading to his appointing a British agent to recruit volunteers for the endeavor. He said, okay, I'm about to go into something else right there. But look, this is what Lincoln wanted to do. He wanted to set up black people in a colony outside of the European structure of the U.S. because Abraham Lincoln was a white supremacist. Don't get it wrong. The white supremacist is not just KKK, because this is before the KKK. And we also have to look, this is before Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler wanted to perfect what the United States did. The United States actually perfected it because they got away with it. No, my bad, I'm down here. He said, my paramount object in this struggle is to save the Union. It is neither to save or destroy slavery. If I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. If I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I will also do that. And that's the crazy part, because if we look at his Emancipation Proclamation, he did it. He freed some and leaving the others alone, because he freed the ones that was revolting. Well, he freed the ones whose slaves was, whose states was revolting, their slaves. And see, all of this will go into the Confiscation and the Contraband Act, which is very important for people who study in this slavery era. The Confiscation Act said that any contraband, which is stuff used by the South, could be taken by the federal government through a process of confiscation. That confiscation, they confiscating the contraband would be the property. So with this, all of this is setting up the conversation around this, but we go through that a lot. Okay. He says, he also spoke on equality between the two races, which is the black and the white race, because that was what was more predominant at that time, especially if we're talking about numbers of blacks in the southern states. I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of bringing about any way of social and political equality of the white and the black races. That I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of making voters or jurors of the Negroes, nor of qualifying them to hold office, nor intermarrying with white people. So Abraham Lincoln letting you know he's not for integration. He letting it go. He said, I am not, nor have I ever been in favor of basically integration. I ain't trying to give these people political equality. I'm trying to free them eventually. I'm trying to get them up out of here. They're free. Free means you can do what you was doing before we even met each other. Before you even knew I existed and I knew you existed, you was free. Our interaction as a European, I'm speaking for them, our interaction put you into slavery. That's the only interaction I have with you. So you're free, meaning you can do what you was doing, not you're free to become a worker in my system, get paid, and be stuck. Don't never build up no wealth over generations. And I will say, in addition to this, there is a physical difference between the white and the black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races living together on terms of social and political equality. I will add to this that I have never seen, to my knowledge, a man, woman, or child who was in favor of producing a perfect equality, social and political, between Negroes and white men. And this is that boy who they call Honest Abe, Abraham Lincoln, who basically black people indoctrinated to basically try to give some type of thanks or hold this guy in high regards. But it was all a political motivation for him to free the blacks in the rebelling states. Because we know for a fact, the Seminoles, we can go before the Seminoles, but I like to bring up the Seminoles because that's just something we can stick to right before the Civil War. The Seminoles was warned against the institution of slavery from as early as 1812 all the way up until 1858. These people didn't just disappear. These people were military soldiers, and the ones who was getting captured, they were still military soldiers, as we can see with the Buffalo Soldiers, who were Seminole scouts as well, and other different scouts from different native tribes. Yes, they had blacks, but the most trained people at the time was the Seminoles, because they was leading the largest rebellion against slavery in the history of North America, the most successful one. But Abraham Lincoln, and that's the thing though, we focus on Abraham Lincoln and it keep us away from that. Even though Abraham Lincoln was trying to ship our ancestors somewhere else, but we can prove our ancestors are indigenous to North America. Indigenous is a term that means you predate colonialism, which we can prove. Yes, we have ancestors who was brought over here, but that doesn't take away the fact that these bloodlines mixed in this part of the planet. You mixed in with this bloodline, so now you can claim that indigenous status too. So he's trying to ship these people away. You can't do it. And this is how we can tell the intentions of Abraham Lincoln, because, and this is two times this general have been countermanded. The first time is with President Lincoln. He issued a proclamation, which we're about to get into. And the second time is your 40 acres and a mule proclamation. And I think it was General Order number 15, I want to say. But they issued out tracts of land. And if we look at the tracts of land that was given out, it was all on the southeastern border. And I just said the Seminoles, so we can go from the Carolinas all the way to Florida. From the Carolinas, we had the Yamasee. The Yamasee became the Seminoles. And the Seminoles, people say it means maroons or runaway, but yet similarly, it actually means free people. So we talking about that area becoming a part of the 40 acres and a mule before the U.S. government took that away after people was already there living on it and was tilling it. But we also have this instance, or before that, we have this situation to solidify the relationship and the idea that the U.S. wanted to go into with Black people. But this was Washington, D.C., the 19th day of May, in the year of our Lord, 1862. So this May 19, 1862, by the President of the United States of America, a proclamation. Whereas there appears in public print what purports to be a proclamation of Major General Hunter in the words and figures following to wit: Headquarters, Department of the South, Hilton Head, South Carolina, May 9, 1862. General Order number 11. The three states, Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina, comprising military department of the South, having deliberately declared themselves no longer under protection of the United States of America, having taken up arms against said United States, it becomes a military necessity to declare them under martial law. This was accordingly done on the 25th day of April, 1862. Slavery and martial law in a free country are altogether incompatible. The persons in the three states, Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina, heretofore held as slaves, are therefore declared forever free. You know, and that's the language you got to look at. They are declared forever free. This is a proclamation made by the high general leading against a foreign enemy, the South, who's warned against the United States. So he don't owe them nothing. And that's the thing with Lincoln. He tried to put it where, and we just gonna get into it. This is what we're gonna do. We just gonna get into it because I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But this was David Hunter. So if you declare these people forever free, this is the thing you got to understand. When Black people actually got freedom with the 13th Amendment, it don't say that these people are declared forever free. It is very, very, very important that you understand that the 13th Amendment came with freedom as well as a way to enslave you again. If you're duly convicted of a crime in their system, what you outnumbered at, you outfinanced in, you don't got the time for it because you don't have the liberty to just miss work and all of this extra stuff to get to their system. But when you get into the system, they can basically you enslaved again. But the U.S. general leading a war against a foreign state who's rebelling against or warring against the U.S., he said that the people that these people got in these rebelling states that's not a part of the United States no more, them people are forever free. Forever. Meaning you can't be enslaved again. Forever free. So we're going to look and see what Abraham Lincoln did so we can get back into why this is important. Ed W. Smith, acting Secretary Adjutant General. And whereas the same is producing some excitement and misunderstanding, therefore, I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States, proclaimed and declared that the government of the United States has no knowledge, information, or belief or intention on the part of General Hunter to issue such a proclamation, nor has it yet any authenticated information that the document is genuine, and further, that neither General Hunter nor other commanders or persons have been authorized by the government of the United States to make proclamations declaring slaves of any state free. See, now he's trying to put it in his mind that these people are still a part of the United States. This is how he's getting ownership over this group of people. in that the supposed proclamation now in question, whether genuine or false, is altogether void so far as respects such declarations. I further make known that whereas it be competent for me as Commander-in-Chief of the Army and the Navy to declare the slaves of any state or states free, whether at this time or any case, it should have become a necessity indispensable to the maintenance of the government to exercise such power, such supposed power. So he's saying that he ain't doing it right now unless he basically have to. Under my responsibility, I reserve myself, which I cannot feel justified in leaving to the decisions of the commanders in the field. So he calling him a commander now, and this is a general. These are totally different questions from those police regulations and armies and camps. And it's not. See, this is something that's going on between two nations. So he can come in between that, but the Confederate States seceded, meaning that they saw themselves as a separate nation. And there's no way that Abraham Lincoln can get around that. But he says, on the 6th day of March, last, by special message, I recommend to Congress the adoption of the joint resolution to be substantially as follows. Resolved that the United States ought to cooperate with any state which may adopt a gradual abolishment of slavery, given to states, given to such states. I guess they're gonna give them aid. They're gonna basically pay these people to be used by such states in its discretion to compensate for any convenience, public or private, produced by such a change of a system. So he's saying, we're not going to free these people. We're going to help the South. So I'm not worried about the slaves. It's nothing about the slaves that I'm concerned about. My concern is making sure that the South is going to be okay with such a change of a system, even though the states that he's referring to is not a part of the United States. They're called the Confederate States since they seceded. And we know that they seceded because they had to take amnesty, which we're going to get into this series. Please stay tuned to this series. The resolution in the language above quoted was adopted by a large majority in both branches of Congress and now stands as an authentic, definite, and solemn proposal of the nation to the states and people most immediately interested in the subject matter. To the people of those states, I earnestly appeal. I do not argue. I beseech you to make arguments for yourselves. You cannot, if you would, be blind to the signs of the time. I beg of you a common and large consideration of them ranging, if it may be, far above personal and partisan politics. This proposal may come in cause for a coming dues of heaven, not rendering of reckoning anything. Will you not embrace? So now he's just getting to all of this splatter, and I don't want to read all of it because I don't want to lose my train of thought. So General Hunter warned for the United States in foreign territory, which is the southern states, said that these people are free. And what I have in my presentation called Policing Blacks is that when Lincoln heard of these people being free, see, this is nice language. He countermanded General Hunter, and he told him that no, Black people will come to the United States in protection. They're coming as property in the protection of the federal government. So what we had at the end of slavery is we had the ownership of slaves stop being from individuals, and that these so-called African Americans, descendant of slaves, came to the United States basically as property of the U.S. government. And we know that they're property because what Lincoln did is, instead of the people being free, General Hunter viewed these people as people. Abraham Lincoln viewed these people as property. So what he did was confiscated the contraband. Confiscation is the act of taking contraband, which is the slaves. The slaves are the contraband. So he took the contraband from the South, confiscated it, and it was in possession of the federal government. That's how he did it. And General Hunter actually did that with land to give Black people the 40 acres and a mule in Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. But what Andrew Johnson did, which we're going to get into. He took it back. And the thing is, Abraham Lincoln never viewed black people as people. He only viewed them as property, because if he viewed them as people, he wouldn't have made an arrangement on paying them off, because he's basically buying a property now. He's giving these people restitution for what he feels is an injustice to them. He's trying to preserve the Union, which is, if you white, you can't blame him. But if you're a black person, you have to think as a black person and be like, okay, I should have been basically more concerned with what the Seminoles was doing, because the Seminoles warred and they got freedom and they didn't come into the United States under any property agreement. And you could say, well, the Seminoles ain't doing nothing right now because enough people not pushing these indigenous movements like they should be, because a lot of it African-American or these indigenous people. And if we push these movements instead of pushing a candidate every 4 years, every 8 years, hoping that they'll put something through for. I be telling people all the time, if you think Trump is the worst nightmare, just imagine telling people to vote, 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 and you still ended up with a Trump. Black people have been trying to vote as long as they could. It ain't no new process. But this is it's a Wikipedia account, but it's just different I guess quotes I would say on African Americans from Abraham Lincoln. You even got Frederick Douglass in here. They say Lincoln was known as the great emancipator. Lincoln was a complicated figure who wrestled with his own views on race. Through changing times, successive generations have interpreted Lincoln's views on African Americans differently. To apply and see, this is when I first came in. This is what I say that European colonists try to do. Check this language. To apply 20th century beliefs and standards toward America of 1858 and declare Abraham Lincoln was a racist is a faulty formula that unfairly distorts Lincoln's true role in advancing civil and human rights. By the standards of his time, Lincoln's views on race and equality were progressive and truly changed minds and policies, and most importantly, hearts for years to come. So what I just showed you, Lincoln was trying to ship black people up out of there. When somebody did free the slaves in these states, Lincoln came back and said, no, these people not. He said, I don't know who told you that, but nah, them people ain't free. You warned against us, and I'm telling you, you still got them. I'm gonna free them when it's time for them people to be free. I tell you who free and who not free. That's Lincoln. So they saying that to compare our standards, and this is the thing, white people think that black people are historically slaves. That's what they try to play you. And you even got black people who think black people are historically slaves, and that's crazy. Black people have a history before slavery, and we're going to have a history after slavery. We were people before slavery, and we were people after slavery. That just doesn't disappear. So when they try to make it seem like black people just were slaves and then white people just had a revelation and say, let's not do it. No, your people was doing an injustice, a crime on a specific group of people that you carried out and stole these people wealth, which we can prove. It's a fact that that's what they did. So I'm not trying to hit this pity party on Lincoln should be considered a racist because of the times he lived in. Andrew Jackson, the times he lived in, and that's another person who's going to be a part of the series. We're going to expose all of these people because I am tired of people saying, okay, Trump is Hitler and Trump is that. I'm like, bro, Trump is a U.S. president. Show me one that hasn't promoted these agendas. I don't see how white people can get the run to Hitler. Even when Jesse Jackson went over there, he said, man, I basically was I guess he met Hitler and he was snubbed over here when he came to the U.S. Why would Hitler meet this dude if he had this different opinion about him? Also, they say when black people was over there in Germany fighting, black people were segregated from eating with the people they was fighting with, but the German prisoners of war was eating with the Europeans over here. And you can look at the end of the Jesse Owens. I said probably said Jesse Jackson, my bad. The Jesse Owens movie. And you can see Jesse Owens still got to go through the back door with an Olympic medal on. So I'm not trying to hear about none of them people over there across the water. The racists and genocide happened right here on this shore. That's what I'm worried about. And nobody has been as foul, destructive, murderous, genocidal as what them people did to my people over here, and are continue to do it. Rather it's still physically no more. Like, look at this, man. They got our people believing that Lincoln is something that we should be happy about, even though we can show you that he changed our people from being forever free and went out his way to say, no, these people are not free. We got a 13th Amendment for that one. We got to make sure we still get some money on the back end. These basically our people now. Lincoln's primary audience was white voters. Lincoln's views on slavery and race equality and African-American colonialization are often intermixed. During the 1858 debate with Stephen Douglas, Lincoln expressed views that he believed whites were superior to blacks. Lincoln stated he was against a racial mixing and allowing blacks to serve as jurors. While president, as the American Civil War progressed, Lincoln advocated and implemented anti-racist policies, including the Emancipation Proclamation, which only freed slaves in rebelling states and limited suffrage for African Americans, so limited voting rights. Which, if black people had voting rights, what was the civil rights about? And this is in 1858. So, like, let's be honest. Did Abraham Lincoln really do anything? Like, let's tell the truth. He got an institution to stop, which was a massive institution, the cotton in the South, but the North depended on it as well. And the U.S. passed laws called the Fugitive Slave Act, which made sure that this institution was well taken care of as far as your property leaving your plantations. The U.S. wasn't going to let it happen. So everybody's implemented, the North and the South. So Abraham Lincoln switched what they was doing from cotton or whatever. He changed that institution depending on slavery. But I don't see Abraham Lincoln as the great emancipator as people try to play him out to be. And it's kind of disrespectful that they run that small time stuff on African Americans. Former slave and leading abolitionist Frederick Douglass, he said that he had the same prejudice as his white fellow countrymen against the Negro, but he also has some good stuff to say about him, and that's what I guess you could take the good and the bad, because that's kind of what people could say with Obama. People could say, oh, okay, it was good for me to chill around Obama, but for the most part, Obama is just as racist as all them other white folks because he ain't really do nothing for black people. So that's what, to me, when I read this with Frederick Douglass, he said that he had the same prejudice as his white countrymen against the Negroes, but in this country, I was never reminded of my humble origins or my unpopular color. So I don't even know why he would even care what he think about his color. That's the thing we gotta get out our head too. Like, who cares what the dude, what color the dude think you is, bro? That's not even something that would ever come into my mind. Even though you at that time, you gotta be proud to be who you are. That's why I like Martin Delany. Martin Delany said not only do he thank God for making him black, but he thank God for making him a black man. He wasn't ashamed. He didn't care what Abraham Lincoln thought about him being no black man. But this is just a different stuff Abraham Lincoln said. He wanted to send black people out of here. He didn't think black people was equal. He actually said that they were superior, or whites were superior to blacks. Let me see, go back to, man. Yeah, there you go. I thought I closed it up. Oh, here you go. I will say then, this is the full quote, because I don't think I had the full quote up in here. And this is, I'm going to close out with this one. I will say then that I am not, nor ever have been in favor of making voters of the Negroes or jurors or qualifying them to hold office of having them marry with white people. I will say in addition that there is a physical difference between the white, which I suppose will forever forbid the two races living together upon terms of social and political equality. And in as much as they cannot so live, while they remain together, there must be a position of superior and inferior, that as much as any other man in favor of the superior position to the white man. So this is the thing. He's saying as long as we here, it's always going to be white on the top and black on the bottom. That's Abraham Lincoln. And see, look at this. we on political facts. I mean, snoops. They're trying to do a fact check, but they say, of course, this excerpt from one speech does not represent the totality of Lincoln views on race and racial equality. But this the thing. Why do they gotta try to qualify this though? Why do you go out your way to qualify it? Let it speak for itself. This is what I'm taking from it. I'm taking from it that, okay, why I never heard about this is if this shouldn't represent everything, why the stuff that I hear about should represent everything? I don't understand. You tell me that this dude supposedly just, oh man, I'm the great emancipator. I free black people. Even this dude, Trump's Vice President Pence, he gonna tweet, I guess in the beginning of Black History Month, I guess probably about last year or something like that. He talking about some, I guess, thank Abraham Lincoln for Black History Month and all. Not thank Abraham Lincoln, but he said, thank you, Abraham Lincoln, during Black History Month for freeing the slaves. Other nonsense. So this is what we doing in Free Black Society. We going to the basics. We finding out what these people thought of us. We finding out our interaction with these people. We finding out how we should move forward. We know we was Aboriginals over here. We should be learning about our folks and not these people right here, because your kids gonna go to school and learn about this, and this is a form of genocide though. These people teaching you about people who didn't care about your people. This is no way that if you and that's the thing though, Jews for the most part, for the large part, left Germany at the end of the Holocaust. At the end of the slavery, black people and white people stayed here. Nothing happened. Like nobody really left in that instance. And black people didn't have a chance to basically separate, get our stuff and self together before we started doing these interactions. So they took advantage of us. So that's what we're trying to find out, our best relationship that we should have with them, because there's no way that they should be able to teach our kids and stuff in school. And this is only the beginning. Lincoln is light work. We got George Washington, we got Thomas Jefferson, we got Andrew Johnson, Andrew Jackson. We're about to get them. So when people be trying to run over there talking about, and I'm not trying to downplay what Hitler did, but people actually try to downplay what the European colonists did to our people over here. And I think that's preposterous. To me, and this might be harsh though, but I feel like when people say that, that's kind of like spitting in your ancestors' face. That's you saying that I believe what them people went through over there was more evil, more hurting, more destructive to humanity than the stuff that took place in the Western Hemisphere in Africa with our ancestors. But it's a Free Black Society presentation, fam. Hit up freeblacksociety.com, subscribe, because this is just the beginning of the series. Peace.